Psych2Goers, do you remember the last time you felt sad, anxious, or scared that you were somehow off? You're not alone, even if it may feel like it. The National Alliance on Mental Illness, or NAMI, reports sometimes a funk or rough patch can be a sign of something much deeper. This video represents 10 mental health symptoms you shouldn't ignore. Before we begin, we need to warn you that this video may be triggering for some. If you feel triggered by this video, please take care of yourself, even if it means clicking off this video. With that being said, let's talk about the 10 mental health symptoms you should not ignore. 1. You're having feelings of sadness or depression that last longer than 2 weeks. All people experience sadness at one time or another. However, most normal feelings of sadness get better with time. The American Psychiatric Association reported abnormally intense sadness lasting 2 weeks could be a sign of depression. The National Institute of Mental Health stated, not being able to snap out of it or sadness being heavier than normal should be taken seriously. 2. You're having extreme mood swings and don't know why. Do you find that your mood seems to switch super quickly or randomly? Tlemp and others studied how often the average person's mood shifts on any given day. According to the National Center of Biotechnology Information, NCBI, this study showed people tend to experience positive emotions, such as joy or love, more often than negative ones. But it's totally normal for someone's emotions to change daily. However, the National Alliance for the Mentally Ill, NAMI, warns especially dramatic mood swings that cause huge changes in your behavior and energy can be a sign of bipolar disorder. Agencies such as the American Academy of Pediatrics say the more red flag signs are experiencing sadness, anger, or feelings of excessive euphoria for most of the day, especially if it has nothing to do with what's going on in your life. 3. Your worry and anxiety have gotten out of control. Have you ever found yourself worrying but can't shut it off? According to the National Institute for Mental Health, it may be a sign of an anxiety disorder. Other signs of anxiety disorders include having problems relaxing, insomnia, racing thoughts, unexplained aches and pains, or being easily irritated. The Anxiety and Depression Association of America suggests that if you've ever felt this way on most days for at least 6 months, you should consider talking to a mental health professional about your symptoms. 4. You've started withdrawing from others or isolating yourself. Taking time away from others can be positive for your mental health and physical health, but what if you constantly make excuses to avoid socializing? Mental health pros, such as Raymond Starr Jr. and Howard Dubowitz, say avoiding people or events you used to enjoy can be a sign of mental illness, such as depression, anxiety, or a psychotic disorder. 5. You may have noticed you're having delusions or hallucinations. Kumari and others describe the two aspects of psychosis, hallucinations and delusions, as a sense of perception or belief that creates a lot of urgency in the person experiencing it, despite evidence the perception or belief isn't real. The National Alliance on Mental Illness reports up to 100,000 people in the US will experience psychosis every year. NAMI further stated 3 out of every 100 people will have a psychotic episode as a symptom of a physical or a mental illness, such as schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder, in their lifetimes. 6. You're having more and more difficulty dealing with normal life situations. Have you ever gone through a time in your life when nothing seemed to go right and you just couldn't deal? The Australian Department of Health stated a rough patch that you just can't get past, one that hurts your ability to function for more than 2 weeks to 2 months, may be a sign of depression or anxiety. A major sign that what you're experiencing is more than just a rough patch is when you have a hard time functioning in normal situations for several weeks, according to Mental Health America. 7. You're sleeping too much or too little. The Harvard University School of Medicine believes that 10 to 18% of the general population has problems sleeping. However, Harvard's med school stated either sleeping too much or too little is 2 or 3 times more common in people who suffer from a mental illness. The Harvard Med School stated about 50% of people who live with ADHD, depression, anxiety, or bipolar disorder suffer from insomnia or hypersomnia, which means sleeping too much. 8. You've started abusing drugs or alcohol. According to mentalhealth.gov, 1 in 4, or 25% of people who live with the symptoms of a mental illness use alcohol or drugs to self-medicate things like anger, anxiety, or mania. Experts believe individuals who suffer from depression, anxiety disorders, personality disorders, or schizophrenia are more likely to use drugs and alcohol as a coping mechanism than people diagnosed with other mental illnesses. 9. You're having extreme anger outbursts. Do you ever feel anger that's almost impossible to control or way too much for the situation? If so, your anger may be warning you about your stress levels, unresolved grief, or your anxiety. Healthline reported extreme anger outbursts can also be a sign of unresolved trauma, bipolar disorder, alcohol abuse, obsessive-compulsive disorder, intermittent explosive disorder, or depression. If you wonder if your anger is healthy, experts recommend first recognizing your physical and emotional signs of anger. And 10. You've started thinking of self-harm or suicide. The Mental Health Foundation reported up to 10% of people under the age of 30 have thought about self-harm or suicide. There are many reasons people consider self-harm or suicide, such as abuse or neglect at home, a major loss, trauma, or a catastrophe that you can't control or avoid. Brodvik, 2018, reported approximately 90% of people who have completed suicide also suffered from a severe mental illness, such as bipolar disorder or depression. If you find yourself thinking about self-harm or suicide, we would very much like you to reach out to a mental health professional and get the help that you need and deserve. If you can relate to any of these symptoms on this list, you're definitely not alone, nor are you bad for feeling this way. But we want you to take care of yourself, which means reaching out to a mental health professional if you've been experiencing any of the symptoms on this list.
In 1992, the World Federation for Mental Health declared October 10th as World Mental Health Day. This day has been celebrated for over 27 years by 150 countries around the globe, and with more every year. Mental health has quickly become one of the most pressing social advocacies of its time. In spite of this, there's still a startling number of people who fail to realize just how important mental health is. Emotional exhaustion is a serious concern, and burnout is considered an official mental illness by the American Association of Psychology. Both of these problems are a result of neglecting mental health. So, what are the warning signs your mental health may be at risk? 1. Your sleeping and/or eating pattern has changed. Do you find it difficult to eat or sleep right, even though you haven't made any significant changes to your lifestyle? If you do, that's a serious red flag for your mental well-being. Changes to note can take the form of either sleep deprivation, oversleeping, overeating, or not eating enough. According to a 2010 study by Kilgore, dramatic changes in a person's sleeping and eating patterns are often associated with poor personal care. Both eating and sleeping properly are patterns essential not only to your physical health, but your mental health too. When you don't get the rest you need, it can make it difficult for you to concentrate and be productive. It makes you more irritable, anxious, and stressed. On the other hand, an unhealthy diet can lead you to be less energetic, experience a loss of self-confidence, and more prone to depression. 2. You have unstable moods. Another common sign of poor mental health is having frequent mood swings. Do you find yourself feeling easily irritated or distressed by even the most minor inconvenience? If that's the case, your mind might be crying out for help. These sudden or intense shifts in your emotions are most likely caused by emotional exhaustion or overworking yourself. This symptom is telling you that you're past due and badly in need of a break. When you're neglecting your psychological health, your brain finds it more difficult to function and regulate emotions like normal. Because of this, you might find yourself feeling stressed out all the time, unmotivated to do anything, or overwhelmed by everything going on in your life. In extreme cases, some people experience anxiety or panic attacks from not being able to cope with emotional stress. 3. You feel disconnected from everything. Do you find yourself isolating from people you're normally very close to? Social withdrawal and isolation are some of the worst consequences of poor mental health. When this happens, you begin to lose interest in previously enjoyed social activities and don't want to be around anyone, even loved ones. You feel disconnected from everyone. You find yourself apathetic and emotionally numb, despite being outgoing or friendly before. These symptoms are critical signs that you need to start taking better care of yourself mentally. Isolating yourself from others can make it harder for them to help you, so you need to do your best to help yourself. If not, the possible worsening chronic loneliness, emptiness, and loss of hope may lead to severe consequences. 4. You feel down most of the time. Have you been experiencing frequent or prolonged depressive moods? Do you find it hard to feel any sort of pleasure anymore, even from things that used to make you happy? This is a cause for concern when it comes to your mental health. Aside from being moody and irritable, most of the time, people whose mental health is hanging on by a thread will seem disinterested, unmotivated, and exhausted. 5. You have difficulty concentrating. Do you have difficulty maintaining your focus and finishing tasks, even when the tasks are easy? If you find that it's harder than usual for you to concentrate, recall information, analyze problems, or even verbalize your own thoughts, then you're definitely suffering from mental exhaustion. Based on a 2007 study by Steltz and others, a majority of people with declining mental health show signs of impaired cognitive functioning. Commonly known as brain fog, this can happen when you're putting too much on your plate and not allowing yourself the time needed to rest your mind and do things you enjoy. Today's industrialized, competitive, and somewhat depersonalized society makes it so easy to neglect your mental health in favor of keeping up with your hectic schedule. So, being aware of the signs of mental illness could save your life and can help you from spiraling into depression or anxiety. If you struggle with any of these issues, please reach out to a mental health care professional today and get the help you need. Do you resonate with any of the signs explained in this video? How many signs do you resonate with? How are you coping with it so far? Let us know in the comments below. Love this video.